Thanks, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. We're going to go through today and we're going to try and cover using OpCon to monitor your emails. We're going to go through this fairly quick. We want to keep this short so everyone can get back to their days. We will stick around at the end for questions. As long as you guys want to stay on the line, we'll be here. So with that, I'm going to get started. Today, what we're going to go over is we're going to cover really what is an operator. That's kind of a generic term in the industry today, so we want to make sure we know what we're really defining when we mention that today. We're going to look at what the day in the life of one of those people really looks like. We're going to talk about inbox freedom, which is really that ability to free you up from your inbox, stop being chained down to reviewing and monitoring emails throughout the day. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of product demonstrations using the OpCon system to show you what we truly mean by that, and show it kind of in action and give you a couple of ideas of different things that you can use our software for monitoring those emails as well as taking action based off of what's in your emails. So first off, really, what is an operator? Now, this is the textbook definition of what an operator is. That person is responsible for monitoring and controlling those computer systems. Now, for some of you, an operator might be a true position that you have at your organization. There may be one or maybe a set of people who sit in a computer room somewhere or in a set of cubicles somewhere who this is what they do day in and day out. For others, though, this may not be a single position. This responsibility might fall on a group of people, and they all may have responsibilities for their own systems across the environment, or cover just a bit and piece of whatever that overall responsibility happens to be. Regardless, really what we're talking about today is that ability to monitor those emails that are coming into your systems and as well as be able to take action automatically based off of them. So what does a day in the life of an operator look like? Well, for me, I started off my career in the financial industry, especially as an operator. And I worked in a large data center doing a lot of different pieces of that. And for me, my day usually started off with me getting in and getting my morning settled and getting my coffee. The first thing I'd end up doing is sitting down at a desk and monitoring emails and checking all those ones from the overnight hours. And of course, I was always doing this at 4 o'clock in the morning. The next part of my day usually ended up sending and receiving a bunch of files, answering support requests that were coming in from other departments, as well as just doing all those time-specific things throughout the day that I had to do. Those things that had to happen at 8 a.m. or had to happen at noontime or whatever that might be. And then if I was lucky, I'd get to go home and sleep. If not, I'd go home and I'd lay in bed terrified of what could happen during the overnight hours when no one was in the office and having to deal with all those things. And a lot of these things that are on this list, like checking those emails, that's something that happened all day long. Day in and day out, I'd have to constantly be kind of chained down to my inbox, looking for those incoming emails, either from outside sources or even just from my internal staff, and having to be able to respond to those things quickly so that we could keep the business moving forward. We didn't want to have delays in processing our information or just delays in providing timely support either to our internal staff or to our customer base. And that's really what we want to talk about today is that email portion of that job, or it may just be your own inbox or it may be others that are happening throughout your environments that we want to talk about today. Now when we talk about inbox freedom, kind of some things that we need to talk about that go with that. First of all is Outlook rules and folder rules when it comes to your email. That is not really what we're talking about. The folder rules and Outlook rules, those are great. But really all that is that's a way to organize your inbox. You don't get to not pay attention to those emails. You still have to review them. You still have to look at them. Just because they're all in a monitoring folder in your inbox or they're all in a server status inbox doesn't really make that much easier for you. And for me, the big reason for that was always that the language inside of them might be specific that I needed to keep track of. If I get 100 emails over the nighttime hours that tell me that my servers are up and running, and I get one email that tells me that it's down, sometimes that one email can get lost in the mix. And a lot of those are coming out from auto-generated emails. And a lot of you want those, but you don't want those. It's great to have them coming in to say, hey, everything's okay. But like I said, having that one email or those small few emails that come in that say that there are a problem can be an issue for you. Because they can get lost in the mix when it comes to actually keeping track of your email. Also, why are we dealing with email? It's 2017. There's a lot of other things that go on now from SPO traps and SNMP traps to API calls, all that kind of stuff. But there are still a lot of legacy systems out there in the market today. And when I say legacy systems, it really just means those older systems that truly do still rely on email to get their point across. And they might be older systems, or they might just be simpler systems. For example, things like temperature probes or humidity controls, or things that don't necessarily have a full-fledged API that goes with them. For me, that was my APS or UPS systems, as well as my air conditioning units inside of my data center. Those types of systems didn't really have a great interface, but they were really good at sending me emails and letting me know what was going on a day-to-day basis. And one last point to make is almost all the emails that you guys receive are event-based. They either have something to do with an employee being hired or let go, a system status, a file arrival, temperature changes, any of those types of things. Everything has an event that goes with it. And for us, using our OpCon system, OpCon being event-based, that's a true kind of event coming into the system, can be that email that's being generated as we're monitoring that inbox. So we want to make sure that we see those things when they come in and deal with them in a timely manner for you. Now, to really kind of show you what we mean by this, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a couple of minutes and go through and show you a couple of demonstrations of this. So what I have open in front of you all is, first of all, on the left-hand side, this is my inbox. I don't have anything sitting there right now, and we're going to drive all this remotely into this inbox so that we can show what's happening. On the right-hand side, for those of you who are familiar with it, this is our OpCon system, and I'm showing a view here. It's kind of like a spreadsheet view. We call it a matrix view. And what it's going to do is you can see in the column labeled job name really what's going on. As part of my demonstration today, I've already had a few things that have happened. They've gone through and made sure that all my configurations are set up, as well as some of the precursor work for what we're going to cover today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive this actually using our self-service module, kind of off on my other screen here. I've got a few buttons out here that I'm going to use to drive this demonstration as we go forward, but I'm going to keep this out of the way so we don't take up too much of our space on our environment. Now, the first thing I want to show you is some sort of a status message that might be coming through. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm actually going to stop a Windows service on my environment and generate an email that comes in as part of that. Now, many of you today are probably already doing some sort of monitoring when it comes to Windows services or server statuses or whatever that might be. And today you're probably using some sort of a third-party tool that does all that stuff for you. Something like a SolarWinds or a What's Up Gold or any of those other type of monitoring softwares that are out on the market. Those pieces are great. They do monitoring very well. A lot of times, though, they don't necessarily have the follow-up or the ability to build workflows that go with those. And that's really what we want the ability to do. And for me, Windows services stopping was always a problem. And the problem is that the end users typically see those things first. If I wasn't sitting at my computer running my processing and actually looking at my inbox, I wouldn't see that. And what the end user might have is some sort of an indication on their end that there is a problem. For us, the particular service I stopped, this is what will happen inside of our own software. You'll get a nice big error message when you try and view job outputs inside of the OpCon system. So if I had an end user sitting at their desk, they're trying to pull up this particular information, they're getting an error message, and now not only have I gotten the email that the service isn't running, my monitoring software is already doing that, but now I'm also getting flooded by emails from all the end users across the company letting me know that they're seeing this message. And if you guys have ever worked in a support department, you know you don't just get one of these emails. It'll always be 3 or 4 of them that come in from multiple endpoints, all letting you know the same issue is going on. And then you're spending even more time in your email just deleting those and getting them out of the way so that you can move on with fixing the issue. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to have something read this inbox. So what am I going to do is I'm actually going to kick off a process to read those emails. So I'm doing this through that self-service button, one of those ones I showed you guys before. But what you'll notice is this job on the right called Process New Emails is going to run. That's going to log into this inbox, download that email. It's going to compare it to a rule file in the background. It's going to say, hey, I see that message come through that says that the JORS service, in this case, isn't started. And because of that, what it's going to do is it's going to turn around and automatically kick off a job to start that Windows service back up for me. Now this is a direct kind of one-to-one in this particular scenario. And now what I'm able to do is come back in and view my job output. That same process that prior was giving me an error message when I tried to access it now is working fine. I can see that output. I can pull it back up inside of my output here and review that output, a standard function of whatever my software package is that I was trying to accomplish. Now this particular process, like I said, was more of a one-to-one, but you could have made that much more complex. If I see that email come in, maybe it's not as simple as just restarting the service. Maybe you know that when that service stops, there's a whole litany of things that need to happen. Maybe you need to delete some files, take a backup, shut down another service so that they come up in the correct order. Whatever that happens to be, we want to be able to workflow all of that. In this particular example, we're just kind of trying to do a one-to-one and have that immediately come back up. Another use case that actually came out of my background always had to do with our temperature controls in our computer room. We had some issues with our air conditioning for almost a year steady, where our air conditioning units would have issues. So what we had is we installed temperature probes throughout our computer room. And what would happen is throughout the day, we would get emails that would come in that would show us what the current temperature of our computer room is. Now, what I'm going to do is I just you see a job pop in here that says send my current temperature. So I'm going to get an email that comes into my inbox again, and it's going to show whatever the current temperature of my computer room happens to be. Now, this is, again, a standardized email that's coming through, and really the important part of it is what that temperature shows up as inside of the email when it shows up. So in this case, it's that 65 as you see over on the left-hand side. That's the piece that's really important to me. I know I'm going to get these emails repetitively throughout the day. It might be every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, whatever that happens to be. But really what we want to do is we want to pull that number out and use that as part of the process. So when I process this one, I'm going to do that exact thing. It's going to go out and it's going to read that email, it's going to download it, and it's going to capture that 65 out of it. And what's going to happen in OpCon, in this case, is actually nothing. And the reason nothing is going to happen is because that temperature is A-okay. It's fine. We're well within tolerances. That's a normal email that we would have received, a normal temperature for our computer room, and not something that we need to be concerned with. And I did that inside of the OpCon system by setting myself a threshold as to where I need to be. In my case, I need to be staying below 80 degrees in my computer room. If I get above that, that's when I know I have problems. So if the next email that happens to come in shows me going too hot, I may want to take some sort of a corrective action for whatever that is. So in this case, I see an email come in that shows that my current temperature now is up to almost 87 degrees. That 87 degrees is a little bit too hot for my computer room. So I need to do something about it. Now, what your response to that is obviously is completely up to you guys. In my case, what I would do is I would have my emails being read. So again, we're going to see that process new emails go through. It's going to see that, and what I want to do is I want to shut down a bunch of test servers maybe across my environment. So OpCon now is spun down of all these 3 jobs down here to shut down test systems. Those might be actual physical devices in my computer room, and the reason I'm doing that is to try and preserve some of my air conditioning temperature in my computer room. On the flip side of that, I also want to be able to stage myself and be ready to come back online. So as you'll notice, I also staged these 3 jobs. They say I want to start back up those test servers. But again, I still want to be dependent on those temperature probes, those legacy or those simple systems that the only way they have to alert me is through emails. So if, it might be 10, 20 minutes later, half an hour later, whatever it happens to be, if we get back to a temperature that is back within our tolerances, I want to start those servers back up, because that means that maybe somebody has contacted facilities, and let them know that we're having an issue. We've called in our HVAC technicians or whatever it happens to be as our response. so that we can pull that information and get back online. So now we have another email that has come in. Again, you can see now we're back down to maybe 67 degrees in our computer room. So now when we actually read those emails in and we process them, we're going to see that 67. That's going to be within our tolerances. That's going to allow my jobs to run to start back up those servers. And these jobs now should be able to kick off and run and bring those servers back online and get us back where we need to be. So those are the types of things that we want to use this software for. Not only do we want to be reading those emails, but we want to tie those emails and the data that's in them into the workflows inside of an OpCon system to have OpCon be able to be responsive and be smart enough to be able to handle whatever those problems are. Now, how do we do this? Well, I'm going to go back into our slideshow here real quick. How we do this is through a utility that we call Smart Email. Smart Email is a utility that comes with an OpCon license. So any of you who are already on the OpCon system, and I can see a few of you in the list who are already OpCon customers, already have access to this. Smart Email is that utility that you set up and you configure your OpCon system to run on whatever basis you want it to. In mine, I used to run it almost every minute of the day to check for new emails. If that's not something you need, it is that tight of a time frame, you can set it to run every 15 minutes, every hour, whatever makes sense for your environment. What we do is we download those emails. And the first thing we do is we check and validate a lot of the information in them. And we do that based off of a configuration file. So we check the subject line and we check the body of the email. And based off of the contents of those, we can generate an email. Now we also do some checking for security reasons. We check the senders of the emails to make sure that they're appropriate senders so that you don't have somebody from an outside email address just sending in emails and triggering things inside your environment. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. We check the time frames that those are being received. So some of these things you may only want to happen during business hours, or you may only want them to happen after business hours. Again, you can lock those things down so that those hold true as part of the automation. We can also download file attachments. We didn't show that in the demo today, but every email that gets downloaded, if it has an attachment, the attachment gets downloaded as well, which means that we can set up automated routines to say, hey, when I download this, I also know I'm going to have an attachment. Go grab the attachment that came down with it and use that as part of a process. A lot of you may have vendors who not only send you an email, but it includes some sort of a file that you need to process, you need to use inside of maybe a core application somewhere, or maybe you just need to archive it off somewhere and put it into a document storage. And also, like we said, we can capture any specific information out of any one of these emails. We can do that out of the subject line or out of the body of the email. We use regular expressions as part of our tool to actually read those things so that we can grab anything that it might be. Dollar amounts, counts, server names, the database names, whatever it might be. I actually recently sat with one of our customers who, what they use this product for is to monitor all of their database backups. Every time a database backup runs, it sends out an email, which OpCon keeps track of, which then can log that information and use the OpCon system to track all of their backups that are happening across all of their systems. So the power of this really is in your creativity and how you need to apply that. So any emails that you guys receive on a regular basis, we absolutely want to be putting these things in for. And even if those emails, not necessarily on a regular basis, maybe they're more ad hoc emails that are coming into your environment, we want to do the same type of thing with those. Like I said, we're going to keep this very quick today, so you guys can get back to your days. If you'd like to have a copy of the presentation, we actually set up to use our smart email system to get back in touch with you guys. So if you'd like to try this out, what we can do is you can actually send an email to the SMA demos at smasolutionsit.com. That's the account that we use for doing all of our demonstrations and things of that nature. If you put operator overload in the subject line of that email when it comes in, what we'll do is we'll turn around and we'll send you back a PDF of the little presentation that we've been going through today. In addition to that, we do have our website out there. For those of you who haven't had a chance to visit it, the SMA website's gone through an overhaul over the past year or so. We've got a lot more additional information out there, as well as some of the recordings of some of the other webinars and presentations that we've done. If you have any other questions after this, or something you think of, or you'd like additional help in setting up any of this stuff, please send an email to that contact address, the contact@smasolutionsIT.com. That way one of our staff can get back in touch with you and make sure that we help you out with any of your needs that you might have. I did have a poll that I wanted to throw out for you guys real quick. If you guys could just help us out a little bit. I was just kind of curious if any of you are doing anything with email today inside of your environment. So some of you may be doing a little bit with this. Some of you may be doing it in a completely manual fashion, what we've been doing. If that's the case, that's great. Some of you may have already started to automate some of this. And maybe this is just a chance for you to enhance that a little bit. Any of these are great. We'd love to hear about it from you guys. Gives us a little bit of feedback as to how you guys are all using either our software if you're already a customer, or maybe what your needs might be in the future as you move forward. We'll close that one out. Thank you guys for responding to that one. And to make it a little bit easier, if you don't want to have to email us, I'll just give you guys a chance here. If you'd like someone to contact you, please just hit the yes on this one. That'll log that information for our staff so that someone can reach out to you. Or if you don't want to, that's fine as well. We just want to make sure we can provide as much service to you guys as we can. We'd like to make sure that you guys can use these tools that are already at your disposal if you're already an OpCon customer. Or if you're not and you'd like to go through a full kind of demonstration of the OpCon software, any of that information, anything like that that you'd like us to get back in touch with you on, please just let us know. We're always here to help. And I'm going to go ahead and close that one down. Thank you guys very much for getting back in touch with us on these. We'd also like to open it up. If anyone has any questions or if there's anything that we can answer for you about smart email or just email monitoring in general or about the OpCon product, please, you can either throw it in the Q&A portion of the webinar, or if you just want to raise your hand in the webinar, we can unmute people. Like I said, we wanted to keep this fairly short and sweet for you guys, just give you guys some of the concepts of what we do when it comes to email monitoring, and let you guys kind of take it from there. If you don't have any questions, please feel free to drop off if you'd like to. We're going to stick around here on the line and answer any questions that happen to come in, as well as if anybody has anything that they'd like to just bring up, please do so. One last thing I'd like to mention for those of you who are still here is this year SMA is doing road shows. Instead of doing our typical smart sessions that we have done in the past, we're doing a couple different road shows, 2 of them in the United States as well as some internationally. If you need any more information about that, please, you can email our marketing team. It's marketing@smasolutionsIT.com. If you need to, absolutely need to, you can just kind of put that in that contact information, and we'll make sure to get back in touch with you on that. Emails were sent out fairly recently about those, but if you do have any follow-ups on those or you'd like to get registered to attend one of those, please just let us know. We want to make sure we get you on the list that you can jump in and join us on those as well.
Looks like we have a question, Josh, from Linda asking what OpCon versions have the email utility.
The actual smart email utility came out, I believe, with OpCon 15 was released. We did have a prior version of that called Checkmail, which is a little bit different, follows the same exact kind of setup and configuration. Smart email has just been configured to have a little bit ease of use, as well as we keep adding to it. OpCon 17, which is just released last week, has some more features and functionality that were added to the tool as well. But once you're up on OpCon 15 or newer, you should have access to this. I know I saw Dan's question come in. I'm going to jump out real quick. I'll show you guys real quick is the actual configuration file for this tool, for those of you who are already customers. This is my configuration file that I have in mind. One of the things you'll notice is that my username and my password are all encrypted inside of the tool. We don't want to store any of that sensitive information in plain text, as well as the same thing on the user side. So the user side for the actual email itself, username and password, again, are encrypted. The great thing about this tool is you can create multiple of these configuration files for this tool. So if you have different email addresses that you'd like to monitor, we can do that. It doesn't all have to be in a single email address. So if you have multiple service accounts, maybe across multiple departments where you're doing this, then we can actually handle all of those if you need us to.
Did you see the question from Bobby, Josh?
Yep, and actually I'm going to unmute you, Bobby. So you're asking Bobby about just responding with like a yes or no on the restart button?
Yeah, basically like if you got an alert that a service was down, could you build like a workflow to basically say, reply yes to restart service or reply no to not restart?
Yeah, so what you'll see is in my configuration here, mine actually looks like this. So it just says, hey, if I see that Jora's service not running as an email, then I want to go out and I want to add a job in to restart that service. So that's my job name, is my start Windows service. So a lot of people do exactly what you're talking about, where they, instead of having it say this, it might say something like this. They might actually put the response in there instead. So not that they're keying off of the original email, but they're keying off of a response to that email when it comes through. And I've seen that done on a lot of things. Just the OpCon notifications themselves when they go out, based off of like a job failure. Now, some people set them up as generic ones that say, hey, any job failure that comes in, if my OpCon responds with an email that has the word restart, as the first word or the end word inside of that, then go restart that same job that was referenced.
All right, thank you.
Yep. So when we integrate with these email systems, all we're really doing is we're using standard protocols. So you can notice in mine, I'm using IMAP. We support IMAP and POP3 as the email protocols for the Smart Email tool. So what we need to know is what protocol you're going to use, what your Outlook's or your server name is for that, and really we don't care what type of a system you're using. Ours happens to be Office 365. That's what SMA uses for our Outlook. So if you're using Outlook, if you're using Gmail, whatever it happens to be, whatever your server address is, what the email protocol is, and then what's the security level that we're using and what port are we connecting on. With all that information, we can log in and handle downloading those emails. Once they're downloaded, we can also delete them if you'd like us to. You'll notice up above here, I set mine that it'll delete any emails that match one of my configurations. So if it's an email that I'm looking for and you matched up, then you can delete it. That means that we don't actually have to have an agent on your email server to do any of this. We can run this from any Windows agent that you have inside of your environment. And for those of you who know OpCon, that makes this pretty powerful because you can set it up to run, load balance it across multiple servers or all on a single one, however you need to go about doing that. Well, thank you all very much for attending today. We're going to try and do these more often as we go forward. Just some quick, email, so like the email monitoring portion that we've done, and some other different features and functionality of the OpCon system. We want to give you guys a taste and show you what some of the different functionality is that we can do with OpCon and with some of the utility programs that come with it. We definitely want to thank you guys for attending. If you, like I said, if you have any other follow-up questions later on, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can email us through our support department, through that contact email, or reach out to your account rep if you guys need to. Well, I don't see any more questions or any more hands up, so I'm going to go ahead and close out the webinar. Again, thank you guys all for attending today, and have a great day.